here we have the HTC Butterfly, which is one of the latest Android phones in the market, and also the Apple iPhone 5 right next to it. So both are one of the best devices in its own kind of league. So the HTC Butterfly is one of the best Android devices out there, and the iPhone 5 is one of the best iPhones to ever come out from Apple. So we're going to be quickly comparing the two devices. So as you can see here, the iPhone 5 looks a bit tiny compared to the HTC Butterfly. That's because the HTC Butterfly has a 5-inch 1080p screen, whereas the iPhone 5 only has about a 4-inch diagonally display. So both screens have a 16:9 aspect ratio, and the iPhone 5 has a screen resolution of only about 11365 by 640 pixels. It's basically just made 4 inches from the previous iPhone 4S by adding an extra few pixels to make it taller. So in terms of the design, both devices are pretty impressive. The HTC Butterfly is pretty nice to hold in the hands with the huge display and the nice soft touch finish on the back. The iPhone 5 on the other hand is just beautiful. It's one of the best iPhones I've ever seen. So it's got a metallic back and glass on the top and bottom. The previous iPhone 4S had an all glass back, so did the iPhone 4. The iPhone 5 reminds me of the first iPhone, which was also all metal. The HTC Butterfly reminds me of the HTC One S actually, with a similar kind of design, but the screen on the HTC Butterfly is really gorgeous. It's got a full HD 1980 by 1080p screen, and kind of trumps the iPhone in the display department. When the iPhone first came out with the Retina display, I think the iPhone 4, when it came out with the Retina display, it was called the best display in the world on a mobile device. But now the HTC Butterfly kind of steals that crown from Apple with a really nice 1080p screen with a really rich colors and nice viewing angles. So that's about the screens. And the HTC Butterfly comes in a lot of colors. You have, this is actually the black and red variant. So you also have it in white and some other colors. The iPhone comes in black and white. So both the phones are available in India. HTC Butterfly went on sale a few weeks back, whereas the iPhone 5 has been on sale for quite a while now. So in terms of the weight, the HTC Butterfly is about 140 grams, and it's kind of okay to hold. The iPhone 5 is pretty light actually, it's just about 110 grams, and feels as if it doesn't have a battery inside. And as you can see, in terms of the thickness, both the phones are almost the same in terms of the thickness. The iPhone 5 probably is slightly thinner by a couple of millimeters. So it's about it in terms of the hardware. So in terms of the build quality, the HTC Butterfly is kind of nice to hold in the hands. It's kind of plastic or kind of polycarbonate with a soft touch. On the back, as you can see here, it's still not metal, it's kind of plasticky and rubbery, but it's pretty nice on the hands, feels soft to the touch. The iPhone 5 on the other hand is fully metallic and glass here on the top, and feels really premium in terms of the hardware. And the HTC Butterfly also does not feel cheap at all like the Samsung phones. So it feels really nice and can probably withstand a drop or two, and it's pretty well made in terms of the design. And it did draw a lot of attention when it was first announced in Japan as the Butterfly, and also been selling quite well in the US as the Droid DNA on Verizon. And HTC has also brought it to India now, so as their flagship device. So HTC Butterfly kind of takes on the iPhone 5 in terms of the hardware, doesn't lose points there. So that's the hardware. So in terms of the usability, so The iPhone 5, when it came out, some people kind of made fun of the iPhone 5, saying it can't be used in one hand, whereas because the main reason being the iPhone 4 was slightly shorter, and personally I found the iPhone 4s to be a lot more comfortable to use, especially when you're using it one-handed. Reaching out to the top of the screen can be a bit troubling. Same problem exists with the HTC Butterfly as well. So as you can see, the screen is a lot taller than traditional phones, smartphones of today. So it's got a 5-inch screen and it's kind of narrow. So you can't actually reach the top of the screen without doing some extra work, which is kind of sad because it's a really nice phone. HTC could have actually made the display a little bit wider, but it's a bit narrow. As you can see, if you place the iPhone 5 on top, it's slightly kind of bigger than the iPhone in terms of the width, but still it's a lot larger and totally. So it makes it a bit more hard to make use of the full real estate. I have fairly big hands, but still I'm having trouble reaching to the top of the screen. Where on the iPhone 5, it's kind of easier now because I kind of got used to it. So it's kind of easy to use. So I think if you actually end up buying a Droid DNA, you'll be giving some exercise to your thumb and end up getting used to it. So, so that's a quick comparison of the screens. So the next thing is the display. Let's talk a little bit more about it. So as you can see, both the phones have a fairly nice reproduction in terms of the colors and everything. So the HTC Butterfly has a 5-inch display with about 1080p resolution. It's one of the best displays in the market in terms of the resolution. It's got a 1980 by 1080p display. Whereas the iPhone 5 is kind of a tricky display because it's slightly just taller than the previous iPhone, because Apple wanted to make a 4-inch iPhone. So the 4 inches are actually measured diagonally. So it's got a pretty low resolution compared to the Droid DNA. It's only a 1136 by 640 pixel resolution with only about 326 pixels per inch, whereas the HTC Butterfly has about 440 pixels per inch. But the iPhone 5 doesn't kind of lack any other issues. It does feel really awesome to use and very responsive. The lack of the higher resolution display on the iPhone is kind of livable with, because I think there's also a problem with the apps not scaling to the new resolution. Even some apps, even today on the iPhone 5, are still have blacks on the top and the bottom because they are still designed for the previous iPhone. So Android does handle scaling slightly better, because the same app which runs on a phone can be run on a tablet, probably a bit pixelated, but still it works, fills up the screen. So that way the screens kind of are on par with each other, although the resolution kind of is favorable with the HTC Butterfly. So probably if you're looking for a nearly very high res display, then probably the HTC Butterfly is the way to go. In terms of the internals, the HTC Butterfly packs a quad-core processor, whereas the iPhone 5 packs only a dual-core processor, which is kind of slower. But then the iPhone 5 is a lot faster in benchmarks and even general day-to-day use compared to the previous iPhone. So I think probably it would be slightly slower than the Butterfly in terms of the clock speed. Since it's an Apple custom designed core, I think it would be on par with the quad core offerings. Probably it will get outdated later this year, but then with faster Android devices coming to the market. But then we'll also have the new iPhone this year as well. So iPhone 5 was launched about in October last year. So going by that, it's fairly 4-5 months old now. So it's kind of not fair to compare that with the device which is coming in February 2013 or January 2013. But the Butterfly also is not pretty new. The Droid DNA has been selling for quite 3 months, about quite 3 or 4 months now. So both are kind of devices which came out at the same time in the market, and the HTC does win in terms of the powerful internals, with a quad-core processor, 2 gigs of RAM, and the one good thing about the Butterfly is that it has a micro SD card slot for expansion right on the top, whereas the iPhone 5 have to live with 16 GB or 32 GB or 64 GB. There's no 128 GB iPhone yet. It might be coming out later, but you have a 128 GB iPad. So probably the next iPhone will probably have a 128 GB capacity. But for now, the HTC Butterfly with a 16 GB of inbuilt storage plus a 64 GB micro SD card gives you about 80 gigs of space, whereas even the top end iPhone gives you only about 64 GB of space. So the Butterfly wins in the storage department. So let's come to the cameras next. So the iPhone has a 1.2 megapixel camera on the front, whereas the HTC Butterfly has a 2 megapixel camera on the front. While the HTC Butterfly can capture 1080p footage with the front facing camera, the iPhone 5 can capture only 720p video with the front facing camera. On the back, both phones kind of have 8 megapixel sensors on the back. So as you can see, the arrangement of the Butterfly is center of the phone, whereas on the iPhone 5 it's on towards the left end of the phone. So the iPhone 5 has a 8 megapixel camera with a sapphire crystal lens. The HTC Butterfly has a f2.0 lens, which HTC claims is very good in low light. So in terms of the performance, I would say the HTC Butterfly does do a good job in daylight and video capture, but does kind of lack in low light situations. And the iPhone 5 kind of does very well, doesn't do as well as a Lumia 920 or a Nokia 808, but still does do a good job, even a better job than the previous iPhone. So both do 1080p video capture, and the iPhone 5 just does pretty good quality in terms of the video capture. And in terms of the image chip inside the HTC Butterfly, the good thing is you can actually capture videos while you can actually capture photos while you're capturing a video, which is a pretty nice thing, because on the iPhone you can't do that. So when you're actually capturing a video on the iPhone, you can't actually capture a photo of you're going to be missing the frame. So on the HTC Sense UI on the Butterfly, you can actually capture photos while you're recording video. The iPhone 5 also has a panorama feature in the camera, which lets you click panorama photographs. And as you can see here, you have an option for shooting in HDR and also the panorama. It's a nice thing, especially when you're shooting scenes on the back. So the HTC Butterfly does have a really good camera, but the iPhone 5 also does have a good camera, so it's kind of neck to neck in this aspect. So let's come to the battery next. So although the iPhone 5 does have only 1440 mAh battery, since it's pretty lightweight and thin, it kind of lasts quite some time in day-to-day use. And although the HTC Butterfly has a 2020 mAh battery, kind of less for a phone which has a really high-res display. So the Butterfly does require a charge daily, and so does the iPhone 5. But I think the iPhone 5 would probably drain battery slower than the HTC Butterfly. So, but kind of both the phones require a charge at the end of the day. So can last a whole day for average use, and probably might require a charge even before the end of the day with heavy use. So in terms of the software, so we are having devices from two of the top ecosystems in the world. So the iPhone 5 is the most popular OS out there, runs on the most popular OS, the iPhone or the iOS 6.1. So we got an update recently with the So it's running on iOS 6.1, and the HTC Butterfly, on the other hand, is running on the latest version of Android. Not really the latest, probably slightly older version of Android, 4.1, but still the latest version of Android in terms of the Jelly Bean range. The Nexus 4 is the only device that is running on Android Jelly Bean 4.2, but still Jelly Bean 4.1 is not very old. It does pack a lot of features which are new, and very limited Jelly Bean devices are there in the market. So in terms of features, iOS 6 probably is a bit underwhelming compared to Android 4.1 Jelly Bean. But in terms of apps, the iPhone really can't be beaten at this point of time. So all the apps do work, and games especially work really well on the iPhone compared to the Android phones. But it's getting better. So I would say in terms of the software, the HTC um, Sense UI is nice to use. You have really cool animations and features, whereas the iPhone 5 is still running on iOS, which probably looks even similar to the OS which was launched on the first iPhone in 2007. So it's like running on an OS which has its roots which are about 6-7 years old is not a good thing, and obviously Apple will refresh the iOS soon. The good thing about the iPhone is, even if Apple releases a software update, a new software OS update, it's going to be coming to you via an OS update within seconds. So for example, there's no connectivity now, so I think iPhone 5 receives updates via OTA immediately around the world, whereas HTC is actually one of the better players in the Android space to bring out updates. So HTC did bring out Jelly Bean for its HTC One series, the 1S and 1X, fairly quicker than expected. But generally, if you're looking for apps and quick updates and closed ecosystem, then the iPhone 5 is good in that aspect. But if you're looking to have an open ecosystem and you need apps, you need to use tethering, you want to use the phone for a lot of other purposes, then the Android space is a lot more exciting than the iPhone space. But for an average user, it's pretty hard to pick a phone because both are cool and good in its own ways. The iPhone 5 is one of the best smartphones out there, and it's outselling every other phone even today. The HTC Butterfly is one of the best spec Android phones to ever come out, and it's also been doing very well in the US as a Droid DNA. So both the devices are kind of the best in its own kind of platform. The iPhone 5 is the best iPhone ever made. HTC Butterfly is one of the best Android devices to come out. So depending on your needs, probably you could pick any one of them and you wouldn't be disappointed. So that's a quick comparison of the HTC Butterfly and the iPhone 5 from Apple.